Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth of the Sponge Chats. It's been amazing these last Sponge Chats. The response I've got from everyone. Thank you all for your support. Thank you very much for your comments. Very glad that you're finding the videos useful, and hopefully encouraging you to either seek other areas of development, take your career further within ELT. We have a lot of people coming up. Not only on this Sponge Chat, but in further Sponge Chats, so stay tuned. Last week I had the pleasure and the privilege to sit down with Monica Rude-Peachey, and who's a trainer based out of the UK. We got to speak about many things, really. We got to speak about her experience as a teacher, moving into teacher training, becoming a CertTESOL trainer, her experience on pre-service and in-service training, and how they might be different. She is also a blogger and has written a load of things, and so she explained some of her motivations behind that. And of course, we looked at some advice for teachers that are perhaps looking to make similar moves, looking to move into teacher training themselves. So take a look, or if you're listening on one of the other platforms, and let us know what you think. Feel free to leave comments. If you have any questions for either Monica or myself, please leave them down below, and we will try and get back to you as soon as possible. Please give us a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe, and of course stay tuned, there's more to come. All right, thanks guys, bye. Hi Monica.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you. First of all, thanks for being here this morning.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Well, first of all, I suppose we should give everyone a rundown of why we're here. So the purpose of Sponge Chats is really to speak with trainers. So I'm just going to change. Yeah, I'm going to change the gallery here. Okay. Speak to trainers, materials developers, academic managers from around the world, and get their take on how they got to where they are now. And hopefully, by providing teachers with an understanding of where other teachers have taken these routes, we can encourage teachers to, one, stay within the industry, and help retention, I think, and two, hopefully increase professionalism by encouraging more development opportunities for teachers, and see that yes, we have kind of a closed industry, but there are opportunities for people that do want to stay and develop themselves as language teachers. Now you yourself, I mean, you've gone through the teaching phase, you've moved into teacher training. I mean, you're also blogging, and if I'm correct, you're also like a CertTESOL trainer as well. So if you could give us a rundown of Monica, who is Monica? That would be amazing.
Right. Okay. So how long have you got? So started off with the CertTESOL qualification in 2009. Mm-hmm. And funnily enough, I mean, I was so amazed by the knowledge of the trainers there. I remember one morning during one of the input sessions thinking, okay, I'm going to be one of them one day. And that was, that's probably how it all started with the teacher training, even before I had become a teacher. But anyway, so you then get engrossed in the learning to become a decent teacher, that you forget any future dream. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was so into the teacher mode, because I realized that one thing is being a teacher, one thing is being a good teacher. And there is a massive difference. And I think the difference is, well, you can kind of fill the gap in this difference by developing. But what I mean by developing is taking upon yourself the responsibility of development.
Yeah.
You can't always rely on the school that you work for to provide the you know, the CPD and the workshops. I have to be honest, I've been lucky in my teaching career. Most of the schools I worked for, they always provided good training sessions.
Brilliant.
But sometimes that's not enough.
Right.
It obviously depends on the person. For me, it wasn't enough. So I decided to take it upon myself and to read and read and read and observe and watch videos and listen to more experienced teachers. So that's how I, you know, developed.
Yeah.
So after the CELTA, after the Trinity TESOL, I taught for a year in the Czech Republic, then a year in the north of Italy. In between those, I did a couple of summer schools in the UK. Then I came back to the UK and I started teaching in, started teaching in Cambridge. I stayed there for a few years, about 3 years.
Yeah.
I became senior teacher. And I think that's when I realized, and even before me, my academic manager realized that perhaps it was time for me to move forward and getting involved into teacher training. So I started giving some, you know, running some workshops, not only by myself, but sometimes I wanted to collaborate with other teachers. So yeah, so that was a very positive experience.
Yeah.
Then after that, I thought, okay, I want something, you know, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but I felt the need to be validated as a teacher trainer by someone else.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to work in London for a school that they were looking for an assistant teacher trainer to work, you know, to be trained up to become an official teacher trainer for Trinity TESOL. And I was very lucky there. I had a wonderful, wonderful mentor. And so, yeah, that's how I became an accredited Trinity TESOL teacher trainer. And that was such an amazing experience. Yeah, honestly, I strongly advise anyone who wants to get into teacher training to, you know, after a bit of experience, because you do need some experience, but to get involved and become a Trinity trainer. Because it's a process. It's not I mean, I wouldn't say it's a complex process. It's quite straightforward, but it does, it's full on. Yeah. So you started by observing, like a full course, you need to observe the input sessions. You take notes and you start, you know, creating your mind how you would run that session, what you would change, what you would keep, what you would add. And then in the second course, you keep observing, but you have the chance to give some sessions, so run some sessions yourself. Obviously, in the afternoon, you have to give feedback to the trainee teachers. And it's a learning curve by itself. Yeah. Because you need to kind of learn to be kind. Yeah. I'm quite strict, okay, with not just with others, but with myself as well. Yeah. So I had to learn to be to remind myself that, you know, they're learning. They're not teachers yet. Yeah. So you can't expect the standard that you would expect from teachers, from qualified teachers. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. And then finally you know, you are observed while running a course by yourself. Yeah. And then you submit some sort of something like a review of your learning process to Trinity, and they approve it or not. In my case, they approved it, and then that's how you become accredited.
Brilliant.
But it's a honestly wonderful process.
Yeah, it sounds like it's quite in depth. And along the way, did you do Delta? Did you complete your Delta?
Oh yeah, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Yeah, I think it was 3 years into teaching.
Right.
10, yeah, 3 years into teaching. Then I did the Delta, not in order. I didn't do module 1, 2, so I did 1, 3, 2.
I did the same. I did the same. Same way.
And which parts did you enjoy the most? Which of the 3 modules?
I mean, I think module 1 was the least enjoyable for me, but I think it's the one that I think all teachers should do. The one that I benefited from the most, I think, was module 2 in terms of a teacher. And I mean, understanding a specific context, module 3 was, I thought, was amazing, because my focus was teaching in a monolingual context in Italy. And
I did the opposite.
You did?
I did teaching in a multilingual context.
Well, I suppose that's more relevant to you, obviously, teaching in the UK. And for me at the time, I was in Italy. But I mean, in terms of what I found probably the most useful was module 2. What I think all teachers should do as a minimum is module 1. But then I also think module 3 has its merits and really develops you looking at the bigger picture. What about yourself?
I agree with you. I think module 1, I think, is the one that needs to be done first, because it kind of lays a foundation.
100%.
You know, it helps you understand how the materials are put together and the thinking behind it all. So that's a foundation. Then the one that made me seriously develop as a teacher and be very critical about my teaching is module 2.
Yeah, 100%.
But I have to say, I loved doing module 3.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the research and I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a tough thing to do, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it.
I think you did it through Bell, is that correct? You did it through.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, obviously an amazing provider there. I imagine your tutors must have been phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to do mine through ITI in Istanbul with Sally Hurst and the team there, and phenomenal experience. I suppose from a training perspective, I was speaking to Rachel Sateri, and looking at what Delta actually provides you as a trainer. And I think we both kind of agreed that Delta doesn't make you a trainer, but it makes you very critical of yourself as a teacher. And I think that's kind of a prerequisite to being a good or effective trainer. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm not saying that you have to do Delta to be or a TESOL or anything to be a trainer, but you need to be critical of yourself as a teacher before being an effective trainer.
Yes, but it is true. You're right in saying that you don't need to have a Delta or TESOL to become a trainer, but without that critical quality, that the characteristic of being critical about yourself and your teaching, you can't really be a good trainer. And the best and quickest way to become so critical is to go through the Delta or the TESOL. And I'm saying this because for me, it was very difficult to not so much, I'm gonna be honest here. It was difficult to accept criticism. Okay. But it was difficult because I could see that the students enjoyed my lessons and they rated me, as a teacher. But then I learned to understand that sometimes only because the students are enjoying the lessons, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's quality teaching.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I had to take on board the criticism and I had to take on board all the comments related to, a lesson, how to structure a lesson. and how to achieve your aims and all that, you know, especially at the beginning, you know, then we can have the discussion about whether achieving your aims is that important or not, and that's a different story. But you know, when you're learning, when you're developing as a teacher, it is important that you are able to provide a lesson and to create a lesson that is that can get to the aims, can achieve the aims. You know, then you can choose whether you want to go off on a tangent with your students and follow where they want to go, or, you know, carry on to achieve the aims. You know, that's a different story, but you need to be able to make it happen. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
No, but I think that's an important thing, especially if you're going to be evaluating teachers or providing feedback to teachers, whether it's developmental or assessment. You know, you like yourself on a CertTESOL course, you're assessing teachers, but there's also the development factor as well. Within service teachers, you're providing development feedback, but without that experience, I think, of being critical of your own planning and execution of lessons, I think you're lacking validity as a trainer. So, and like I said, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do a TESOL or a DOTA, but like you said, it's perhaps one of the quickest and most well-known routes to being pushed, very much pushed to being critical.
Exactly. It's that's exactly what you're saying. You're getting it there. You're hitting a nail on the head.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
I want to go back to looking at your development as a trainer. So moving from it as a senior teacher into teacher training. It seems like you were provided with that opportunity. And is that correct? Like there was management that supported you in giving you those opportunities?
They did. Maybe I'm making it sound more straightforward than it actually was, but I think so. Like I mentioned before, I was well into my own development, and I think because of that, the other teachers that I worked with, they asked me for advice. I don't know why. I don't know what they saw. I wasn't in their mind, so I have no idea. But they asked me for help in planning lessons, creating activities, and the management at the time, they must have, you know, picked up on that. They must have noticed it, so they decided to push me, and I mean literally push me to delivering some of the workshops. I was terrified of it. I have to be honest with you. I loved the idea of doing it, but I was terrified purely because I thought at the time, what have I got to give? What have I got to share that others don't know already? Because I was one of the newest qualified teachers. The others were a lot more experienced, and I thought, what can I offer? They must have seen something that I couldn't see. And that's how, you know, I started at the beginning. My probably were terrible at the beginning. my workshops probably looked more like lectures, and I don't know, it was awful, but you learn, don't you?
Of course,
you learn from
100%.
that. Also, another thing that I decided to do, I prepared like a template to give out at the end of every workshop that I run, for teachers to fill out anonymously, and with questions like, what did you, basically asking feedback about the session, but not only about the topic, but also about me and about the way the workshop was structured, the way it was presented, the materials used, the topic, everything. And because it was anonymous, you know,
teachers
they
were
were
quite
free to
open,
write whatever. And then I would collect them all, go through them, and use them, you know, and inform with that, you know, I would inform my next workshop. And that was a learning curve as well. You know, again, taking criticism, learning to take feedback. It's a continuous development.
100%, I completely agree. And I think it was with Chris, in one of the other Spanish chats, he was saying that the teachers that you work with, like in your own context, can sometimes be the hardest audience. You know, and receiving that feedback, I can remember my first sessions, like yourself, loved the idea, very nervous, perhaps was a little much too like a lecture, you know, but receiving that feedback really, really helped me develop as a trainer and providing those sessions. But I suppose I was quite lucky as well, like in yourself, like as yourself, I was provided with a number of opportunities to develop as a trainer, which I think is an important aspect in terms of looking at management and how we can promote teacher training, is providing teachers, you know, with the opportunity to deliver a workshop. Doesn't mean they're going to move into teacher training, but they're going to have the opportunity to experience what delivering a workshop is like, and also providing maybe opportunities to be involved in mentoring and looking at that. I think that's important in providing opportunities for teachers to see if it's something that they would like to do.
Exactly. I was exactly going to say that. Yeah, because if you don't experience something, you don't know whether you're going to enjoy it or not. Because sometimes we might like the idea of something, we get to do it, and we're like, oh, actually, that's not for me. Yeah. So if you don't experience mentoring, if you don't experience giving a workshop or you know, any form of CPD session, if you don't experience it, you don't actually know whether it's something for you or not. Yeah. So 100%. Yeah, but I think there are a number of things, a number of factors in order to become a teacher trainer. I think, first of all, you need to have the interest in development. You've got to be interested in it, in development as just development for the sake of development. Yeah. And then you need to have a bit of luck. Like in every situation, you need to be maybe the right place at the right time with the right people. I don't know. Maybe there is a bit of that as well. And also, I would say, you know, you need to have the guts, because you do need to have the guts to experiment. Yeah. Experiment, but this, you know, not only when you are a trainer already, but before that, when you are a teacher, experiment, read up on different methodologies, different ways of delivering lessons, different types of an experiment. Yeah. Tell your students, okay, today we're going to try something new. And at the end, you tell me if you like it, if you don't like it, why you don't like it, and you can have a discussion with them. Yeah. But when you start experimenting, then you lose a bit of that fear, because we all have, or I think most teachers have fear of losing control of their lesson, of their class. But when you experiment and you and your students know that it's an experiment, and everybody's open-minded, then you know that something might go wrong. So you approach it with that frame of mind. Yeah. And that fear, you kind of lose that fear. And you develop something else, which is the flexibility and adaptability. I don't even know if it's a word, adaptability, you know, to adjust to a situation. Yeah. You know, something might go wrong, but, you know, we can always fix it. We can always make it better. And, you know, so I think, yeah, there are some factors that determine your path to teacher training.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I completely agree. Speaking about the path as we go on, I imagine that you encountered various challenges along the way. You mentioned providing feedback, making your sessions, you know, effective in a sense. So what were some of the biggest challenges, and how did you overcome some of those challenges? And perhaps if we could focus a little bit more on feedback as we go through this.
Do you mean like giving feedback or receiving feedback, or both?
Both, but I would assume for me it would be providing feedback in an effective manner. But I'd like to get your take on some of the challenges and how you overcame them.
Yeah, definitely giving feedback is it was it was a challenge in the sense that I'm a very direct person. And I had to develop the skill of diplomacy and tact, which is something that I wasn't born with.
Right.
So I had to, yeah. So what I do now, well, yeah, it was difficult. I had to sit down with, so the mentor that was guiding me through providing feedback in my first original, Trinity TESOL course, when I was training to become a teacher trainer. She kept reminding me about the people in front of me, who they were, as in they're not yet teachers, they are doing their best. Remember that this person, remember the personality. So I've had to learn to really see who I've got in front of me, not just in terms of, okay, he's a person or she's a person who wants to become a teacher, but this is a person with this characteristic, with this personality, with these strengths and with these weaknesses. How can I mold the feedback that I've got in my mind, what I want to say? How can I mold it to become a bit more maybe gentle, but at the same time hit home, kind of. I had to find a compromise between what I wanted to say it and how I had to say it.
Yeah. So
that is something that I had to learn. And one of my academic managers in the past, she always used to say to me, Monica, remember that not everybody has the same standards as you. Remember that not everyone, sees things the way you see them. And not everyone cares as much as you do. So, I always had to remember, remember who you've got in front of you. So that was a big challenge.
No,
and it took me years.
I think it's still something I'm developing now. And you almost, you're looking at the types of interventions you want with teachers, and it's very much based on many factors, from personality, experience, cultural influences. There are many things to take in consideration. And I think that becomes even more difficult when you're working in a multilingual environment. So for example, when I'm here working with teachers that have worked predominantly in a Spanish teaching context, or come from a background that I'm familiar with, for example, from Australia or from the UK or from Spain. I imagine working in a multilingual context with teachers that are from all over the world. There's many factors to consider there. And it's also, trying to, as you said, be gentle but hit home is one thing that's very difficult. And yeah, I mean, one way that I've tried to reflect is that I record my feedback sessions, and I listen back to them. And I can remember some of the first ones that I only started recording them this year at the start, and they certainly weren't bad. I've improved a lot over the years, but I can still see now, either I wasn't direct enough there and that feedback was ineffective largely and it wasn't taken on, or there were ways and perhaps I could have said something different or used different types of questioning to get them to come to that same conclusion. So I've like yourself found that, and still I'm developing with that now.
But it's funny how you just mentioned that you weren't direct enough, or whereas I had the opposite problem. I was too direct. So I think this is a kind of a cultural difference, perhaps, maybe even between me and you. That would that's quite interesting.
I mean, it's and it's all about making those interventions that we get involved in as effective as possible. And I suppose one of the differences, what I like to focus on, I haven't actually taught on any pre-service courses. I'm not a CertTESOL trainer or a social trainer. I would like to be in the future, but I've dealt mainly with in-service teachers with development programs within academies over a certain year. What are some of the differences then between sort of pre-service courses and dealing with teachers there compared to in-service courses where there's perhaps an established development program throughout the whole year?
Well, like you mentioned earlier, one of the factors is experience. So obviously, you know that, pre-service, then you know that they're a blank canvas. You know that, that there are some assumptions. So you expect them to be there because they've invested money, time, effort. You expect them to be eager, and you expect them to be excited about it. It's not always true, but the majority, yeah. And you expect them to work really hard to pass the course at the end, so yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much, because of the excitement, their excitement, and we kind of fed off each other's excitement. Yeah. With the in-service teachers is a bit different. If it's a training course with teachers that you work with, then you can, it's very different, because the experience they've had, them personally, so you probably have already observed their lessons, you've observed them in their classes, so what their weaknesses and what their strengths are. So in a way you can tailor-make make the sessions for them. Yeah. And how to engage them. So even the activities that you decide to create for the session, they can be engaging for them, for the specific audience, because you've got the advantage of knowing them. Yeah. On the other hand, the downside to it is that they are already probably overworked, in the sense that they are already teaching God knows how many hours, and on top of that they've got admin to deal with, the usual stuff that teachers go through, and perhaps they don't have that enthusiasm, motivation to do that extra hour and a half a week, when they could be having that time off. Yeah. Instead they are doing a training course, and I think I found probably that is the biggest challenge. And I think that's how the conversation started between me and you, with talking about motivating teachers. Yeah. In teacher training. Yeah, so that's probably the biggest issue. Yeah. I still don't know how, I haven't figured out an effective way of overcoming that problem. So it's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one because it's fine for me as the trainer to say, training helps you become a better teacher, which helps us make our learners more successful, which is great for the business, all these sorts of things. But then you look at it from the other perspective as a teacher, like, well, mate, I'm working this many hours. Why do I need to come in for this hour and focus on this? And there are many other factors as well. For example, looking at teachers that have been teaching for many years, and feel like there's no need to develop anymore, which I disagree with. Me too. I disagree too. Yeah. And so you're dealing with a lot of these factors. And on top of that, development is usually unpaid. It's usually part of the contract. You're expected to this. So there's already this top-down factor of, we're making you do this. And so, like you said, in terms of finding the
the one weapon against, you know, teacher demotivation or amotivation. I haven't found it yet, Monica. Haven't found
it. No, I don't think anyone has. So, but you know, some schools they get really creative with thinking or coming up with ways to allure teachers into the sessions. Some academies they pay for that hour and a half or hour, whatever. Some decide to do some voluntary sessions and some compulsory sessions. Others offer like a mini buffet. I've seen many different techniques to attract teachers, but to be honest with you, I don't think any work entirely.
No.
Because at the end of the day, the motivation, and I know it might sound really corny and cheesy, but the motivation does come from within.
Yeah.
This, at least this, for in this context, it does come from within. If you don't have the that inner feeling of wanting to become or let's say improve, for lack of a better word, in your profession. If you think that because you've had 20 years of experience, teaching experience, then you think you are up here and you reach the top and that is it for you, then that's when you just kind of, you know, I think it goes down a slippery slope.
It's also, I mean, one of the people I work with, she has this thing, you know, she's a trainer herself and she works with many teachers. And there are teachers that have been teaching for 20 years and have been developing for 20 years. But then there are teachers that have been teaching for 20 years, but have had the same year of teaching 20 times.
Yes.
You know, so I think there's a difference there as well. And
there is a massive difference. Yes. Yes.
But the one thing that I do think, and I'm very strong in my opinion about this, is that yes, I agree that within teachers, obviously we want to develop teachers to be that autonomous teacher. But this is where I think the academies, the institutions themselves have a massive role to play in not only making sure that development is developmental and not too administrative, but also making it so that it's not stigmatized, that, you know, an observation isn't sprung on you an hour before and you're just like, you know, to making it in the sense that, you know, it's supportive as opposed to almost, I don't know, tyrannical. But, and this is where I think that, you know, we really need to think about how we're doing development. It's also one of the things that I suppose, if I were to give advice to new teacher trainers, is to be aware of this factor of teachers and how they feel towards development and their experiences with development in that same institution or other schools.
But it also the perception of development, what development is, because yes, so far I've just mentioned, you know, CPDs and workshops, but like you just mentioned now, observations, that's a massive, it's got a massive role in development, and most teachers are terrified of being observed. I mean, it's normal, I guess, to be scared of it. But I remember once, you actually reminded me, there was a time that I wanted to help. Well, I wanted to overcome this fear myself as well, but also wanted to help others. So I thought, okay, one day in a staff meeting, I announced, I said, okay, from now on, my door is always open. If you want to come and observe, anyone, without any, you know, any official announcement, you can just let me know 2 minutes before the lesson. Monica, I would like to observe, and it'll be fine. I'll just set up an extra chair or whatever, and you're always welcome. I have to say, everybody responded well to my, you know, offer. but in practice, only probably 3 out of the, I don't know how many teachers we had at the time, let's say around about 20.
Yeah.
3 out of more or less 20 teachers came to observe.
Yeah.
And I thought, why? I mean, I would jump to the opportunity, and just going to observe anyone really. But then I realized that it went back to the fact that they were overworked. They were already working like 6 to 8 teaching hours a day, and they, to have that hour to come and observe me, they would have had to sacrifice that hour of their own teaching, and the school would have had to find a substitute for them, so to replace them with someone else, and that would have it just became madness.
Yeah.
So it was a practical aspect, not that they weren't interested. They were interested and they liked the idea, and but it was the practicality of it that made it really difficult, which was sad, really.
It is. Yeah, that's right. I mean, one note on that, in our academy, we so my director and I, we organize peer observations, but we actually cover their class. So when they have a peer observation, if they like to, we go in and we cover their class and they can do the thing. But we have a very small academy. So in terms of that being possible, we can do that. For a number of academies, it's just logistically, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another thing. Now, obviously, we're speaking about development. And yes. I'd like to shift the focus onto you now. And obviously, you've done the teacher, you've become a trainer, certified, Delta, all this sort of stuff. But how do you develop now? I suppose there are 2 things that I'd like to focus on that I think you're going to mention. One, the developing teacher, your blog, and 2, I believe you're publishing materials. So are these your development focuses now, or where are you going?
Everything is kind of merging into one.
The one, right?
So yeah. So, well, first of all, if I want to look at if I want to isolate the aspect of teacher training for my own personal development, well, I know that I need to keep up to date with everything, with not only methodologies, but also different types of lessons, not just for me, but also, for trainees. And I read a lot, everything that is about teaching, pretty much everything. And I also, I'm getting into listening to podcasts, which is something that, I don't know, I'd never thought about doing before, but I am, getting into and kind of discovering different podcasts and listening, reading other people's blogs. And also there's through Trinity, if you're part of their pool of teacher trainers, they send you some tasks once a year. And they send you a video and a lesson plan of a trainee, and you need to basically give your feedback.
Brilliant.
And that's another way of, experiencing development. And so that's one thing. That's what I do for, my own personal development. And then also, my career just went off on a tangent when I started materials writing. It just happened as a coincidence, just a friend of mine, ex-colleague, she was getting into materials writing at the time, and she said, "Oh, Monica, I've got too much work. Can you help me out with this?" So, I started helping her out. I really enjoyed it, and I, got into it a bit more. I contacted publishers directly, and I got a bit of work out of it, you know, and I'm still developing in that sense. But I guess, yeah, that, you know, materials writing, teaching, teacher training, that all goes hand in hand, because it's all part of the same family kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and I kind of recently rediscovered my passion for teacher training. And I thought, well, what about combining the two things that I really enjoy, materials writing and teacher training, and offering something that is not that readily available. Because I remember when I was still when I was initially developing as a teacher trainer, I didn't know where to look for help. I didn't know how to put a workshop together, and that's why they were so bad at the beginning, because I really didn't know how and where to find help. Yeah. And I thought, surely other people are now in the same situation that I was then, and maybe I can give a little bit of support. And I thought, yeah, well, I'm gonna create a section separate from a blog, because the blog are my own personal reflections on ELT topics, whether they're right or wrong. They are reflections and experience, you know, personal. Yeah. But with the other section, which is, like you mentioned, the developing teacher, that is a bit more serious, you know, a bit more more professional, or tries to be a bit more professional. So basically, it's, you can call it like a blog post, but you know, it's like an article about the first one was about listening. So teaching, not testing, listening skills. Yeah. And there is in the article, there's a standard sample listening lesson. And basically I'm criticizing that sample lesson, which is a lesson that I would have normally used without thinking twice about it. But now, you know, with the trainer's eyes, I can see where it goes wrong and why. And it's not necessarily a bad lesson, but it doesn't achieve the aim of teaching listening skills, and it's more like a testing. Yeah. And you know, so talk about listening skills in general. And then I also offer so I offer some slides that can be used. They can be downloaded for free, adapted. They can be used as a starting point for a new teacher trainer, or maybe a new senior teacher, or a teacher with some experience who is trying to progress and develop. Yeah. And you know, so I thought, this is something that I haven't seen much of. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And I thought, why not? No, I think it's brilliant. Right. And in yourself, like you said, you're also developing in that. So developing materials for trainers, I think is perhaps even more difficult than developing materials for teachers. Obviously trainers are very much, you know, the more experienced trainers you get, we're very critical of even ourselves and other trainers. But like you said, no, there is not a lot of readily available materials for trainers to experiment with. There are a number of books in the works from Cambridge and a few others that are looking to change that. But it's still, I really like the initiative, and I'd like to get to that stage as well. Obviously, I develop a lot of my own workshops. Don't know if I'm ready to put them up on the web just yet. But don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm not doing it with confidence. I mean, I'm doing it with. I'm hoping that whatever I post there can be helpful. I am, you know, hopeful, but I am prepared to receive some criticism. Feedback. Yeah, exactly. Because you know, obviously, like I said, I'm trying to take a more professional approach, in the sense that I do research before writing it down and before putting it out there. But at the same time, you know, there will be that probably there might be there some sort of bias, you know, some personal
of course
agenda. I don't know. So that could be criticized in many ways. But I mean, I just hope that people can take something good out of it,
yeah,
and mold it to what
brilliant.
they want to use it for.
Yeah, that's
You
amazing.
know, just more about inspiring people more than teaching anybody anything.
But as well, providing that support for trainers or for new trainers, you know, it's scary. But if you can have, like we said, a bit of support there, whether it's in materials or even reflection. So that's the idea of my teacher trainer diaries, is to give my reflections as a trainer. I have my reflections as a teacher as well, but then my reflections as a trainer. And so, for example, I've got a number of posts that are going to come out over the next few weeks that look at, you know, the workshops that we've done in the academy over the year and the feedback I got from teachers and my own thoughts on them. And, you know, it's not perfect. You know, I look back now and I'm like, that's not good, or we need to change that. But I think the important thing is to get it out there and
Yes.
to share these experiences. Because before I moved into teacher training, you know, that label, trainer, it's like you're up on a pedestal, and you are. But it's when you get there, you're like, oh crap, I need to have my stuff together now. And you know, we're always talking about reflections as teachers, and I really think that as trainers, and now, like you said, there are many blogs out there. You know, for example, Sandy Millen, and other trainers, you know, and they're quite reflective in that. And that's what I want. I want to provide more of that support to you know, new trainers coming through. So speaking about,
especially when you are making that leap, let's say, you know, from teacher,
yeah,
and you are not quite a trainer there, but you feel that you want to do more than teaching, you know, you're there in that limbo.
yeah,
And that's when people need support.
yeah,
and that's what I'm trying, you know, that's the bridge that I'm trying to create.
brilliant.
There.
Yeah, brilliant.
So fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah, fingers crossed, right? So let's get to the advice section. You have a teacher that is looking to move into teacher training. They've been teaching for a few years. They feel confident. Maybe they're an adult or maybe not, but they're quite critical of their teaching. What advice would you give if we had to say 3 pieces of advice to teachers that are looking to make the move into teacher training? What would you give them?
Oh. That's a tough one. So let's say, okay, so first of all, if they're in an environment that doesn't create the opportunities for them, push to create those opportunities. Don't be afraid to ask. Literally, if you want to start as a teacher trainer and you want to do, whether it's observations or being observed by other members, you know, of the team, not just by management, whether it's creating a workshop and delivering it, or just creating it for someone else to deliver it, whatever you feel that you want to do, ask. The worst thing that can happen, they might say no.
Yeah.
But at least you planted a seed in the management's mind, and they think, okay, I've got someone there who is ready to move forward.
Brilliant.
That's first, I would say, just ask and try to create those opportunities. Second thing, write, whether it's reflections, opinions, write, and submit it to the journals, you know, like I can't think of names now.
Modern English teacher or something like that.
Thank you. That's quite embarrassing. Sorry, but yes, yeah. So again, you can submit your work, and they might say no, but you know, usually they are very appreciative of people who want to write for them, and they provide support. They will, if you need to change something in your article or in your writing, you know, they will give you suggestions. So, you know, that's another thing you can do. And another thing, look around for other opportunities outside your academy. So there might be other academies who are looking for external trainers. So you could help, you know, obviously on top of your workload, but you know, if you want to start and push yourself in that direction, see if you can help out and collaborate with other teachers or other teacher trainers from other academies.
Right.
So yeah, basically put yourself out there. Find whatever way, whichever way you can, to put yourself out there, get in contact with other trainers, get in contact with like-minded teachers, because that's very important. That's it, really.
Brilliant, excellent. Yeah, I completely agree with all of them. Yeah, they're pretty much my advice as well. Now, I have a new section of this. I did this the first time with Rachel last time. And it's about book recommendations for potential trainers or teachers looking to go that way. Do you have any book recommendations for teachers looking to move into training?
Yeah, well, there are, into teacher training, there are some books that I've been reading recently, but they are more related to materials writers.
Okay.
But saying that, they are not a bad read for teachers and teacher trainers in general, because they help you reflect on your materials, on what you create, whether it's for your class or for your, you know, for your training
sessions, right?
It's still created. And it's the books from teacher to trainer, and also I am thinking about buying some of the books from ETpedia.
Yeah, they've got some lovely titles out, don't they? Yeah.
Yes, so that's my next purchase, I think.
Yeah.
So yes.
So from teacher to trainer.
But to be honest with you, most of my reading is online. Yeah. And I jump from site to site to site to site, and I can't remember names, I can't remember titles. I'm terrible like that.
Yeah.
But you know, sorry.
No, that's brilliant. That's really amazing. Well, Monica, I won't keep you any longer. You have been absolutely amazing. It's been brilliant to, you know, delve into your mind, look at some of the things that your thoughts about teacher training, and hopefully your advice is applicable to teachers working, whether it's in a UK context or whether it's somewhere else around the world. I mean, if we can help one teacher be more successful in their career, I think that we are successful.
Yeah, and hopefully we can create a ripple effect. You know, we help one and one helps another, and
exactly, so right. No. Well, Monica, thank you very much for today. I hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you later. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.